Hello, everybody. My name is Kristen Manners, and this is a very special edition of Targeted. And we have a special show planned today because we have had a problem in the community, and unlike other problems in the community, this has been one that has affected many people. And the reason why we're doing this show is there are certain things that happen in this community that end up affecting everyone. And this happened to be one of those problems. We didn't anticipate that it was going to be a problem, but it ended up being a problem. There are certain things that happen, or certain items that end up getting made when you are a targeted individual that have claims being made about these items that claim to help targeting, end targeting, shield people from targeting, make claims that they will make targeting go away, make it better, shield you from certain aspects of targeting. Now, it's a good thing to give people hope. That is one thing. It is quite another when you start making false claims about products that do not work. You start making claims about products that can actually cause harm to individuals. When you are selling products to individuals without the proper knowledge, without the proper guidance, and you then start attacking those individuals who have more knowledge than yourself, which has happened in our case. And who I'm speaking of today is Robert Stanton, who made a product out of magnets that supposedly shielded your head and or your genitals from B2K, from direct energy weapon attacks. And we ended up coming out and saying, hey, this product is not effective, it does not work, based on these facts. So when we did that, he went on complete attack of not only myself, but Anthony Thomas, our network, and we seriously have just had enough of that. So what we're doing today is we brought on some experts to talk about the facts of this product. And that's why we're here. My co-host V is with me today, and we have some guests, which I will introduce. V actually will introduce. I'm going to give the floor to my co-host V now. And I thank everybody today for joining me. Thank you.
Great intro there, Kristen. Yes, so just as you have said, typically, when I talk about science, that's, the end of the subject. Since I'm well-researched, that's all I do. I'm just a professional researcher. I'm a researcher before I'm a host, before I'm a speaker, before I do anything. I'm a researcher. And, putting the facts to people is something I do all the time. I don't tell anybody to believe me. I say, here is this. Go research it yourself. But today, again, this is a subject that needs to be talked about because we have everyone from talking about hot sauce being a cure to people making helmets to cure things. So I have with us a panel of experts, all friends of mine. We'll start with the gentleman in white. We have Billy White, or Billy the Butcher, rather, who is a journalist, a hardcore independent journalist, who comes across sort of stuff, undoubtedly. And sitting across from him is Theo, who is a retired psychotherapist. And then we have Dr. Matthew Aaron, which is a TI community favorite and a leader, who is a neurobiologist, correct?
Yes.
Right. And then my very good friend, I wouldn't say retired, but former contractor from the CIA and NSA, who created exotic laser weaponry. So I want to start off actually with Dr. Matthew Aaron, because you have heard more of this stuff than anybody, and I spoke about hot sauce, so I don't know if you want to get started there or what.
I don't want to speak about specifics. I'm more interested in the general issue, and that is that when you have a community dealing with unfamiliar technology and criminal activities for which the powers that be, the institutions that are supposed to be protecting public safety, are not doing anything, it creates a situation that is rife for magical thinking, and people are desperate, and they are desperate to find relief, but there are big issues such as the placebo effect that's not taken into account, and that's on the that's on the in the best possible side of things, and in the worst possible side of things, there's a community of people that are vulnerable to charlatanism, basically. I have comments to make on specifics, but I'm concerned about the issue in general. Not to mention the optics of this looks really bad for a community that has a really hard time being taken seriously.
Okay, and
I would say so.
There are now. I'm going to get you hip to a few things that are out there right now. There are people like what's his name? Olson, Magnus Olson. There's a guy. There's even a company out there who are selling devices. This Magnus Olson is selling pendants, which supposedly do everything from block mind control to scalar healing and protect your environment. And then there are these huge companies, well, I won't say huge, but they're big enough to be companies and ship products around the world, like Q-Wave Defender. They actually sell tabletops that supposedly block mind control. And I trust me, this is real, 100%. That blocks mind control. And there are lots of testimonies online, good and bad. And I don't know, what do you think about this? Why is this even happening? I don't know, from your perspective.
Well, I think I just basically summed it up. That it's a combination of desperation on the part of people that don't have a lot of scientific training or know-how, and even those of us who do have scientific know-how have limited understanding of the true big picture of what's going on, and the real scientists will acknowledge that uncertainty. So people are desperate. People are desperate for relief, and we're being ignored by officials on this issue, completely ignored, or worse. And then there's also the other side of it, is that people can make money from a vulnerable community.
Well, that's most definitely that's the issue. But I was asking, Theo, I want you to comment on this. As far as there are these people who take advantage of these people, how are they? I guess I should rephrase the question. How are they getting away with this? I mean, as a psychotherapist, you came across an ad for a table that is supposed to stop mind control. Aren't you mandated, or would somebody be mandated to make the people test out this product, or would there be something to make them back up their claim, or something to be tested?
As Dr. Matthew would absolutely, agree with. I'm sure Dr. Matthew would absolutely agree that if you are a licensed individual in a profession, particularly a mental health profession or a helping profession, then no, you may not introduce as a product to your patients or anybody else a product that has not been properly tested. It is designed to have an effect on your psychological.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, that's what the Food and Drug Administration is charged to do. That sort of thing.
So this leads us into a discussion about ideological issues, which is not regulated at all, as we well know. And ideology such as we need to shrink our government down to something that can be drowned in a bathtub is what's led us into this particular morass that we're talking about right now. Regulation is almost non-existent in the areas that don't exist people who make a lot of money, that don't affect people who make a lot of money. So going back to what you were saying, going back to the notion that people are desperate for relief. It's true. The suicide rate for children between the ages of 24 and 35 has skyrocketed. It is now the second leading cause of death for that particular group, and it is because we are beset on all sides, social media, any electronic media, and then because electronic media reaches out into communities by the individuals who live in our communities, by an unimaginable tsunami of paranoia. And this issue that we're discussing right now has not escaped the attention of people all over the world who are now beginning to sort of gather together and form a coalition to put a stop to this nonsense, because it'll drive us back into the Middle Ages, or so they fear, and I'm not sure I don't disagree with it.
Agreed. Stephen, if you would like to scroll to that and take a look at photo 7. Here we have targeted individual shielding products, I guess is a label or something by the person that we're speaking about today, the con artist, Robert Stanton. You see the helmets, correct? As a person who, bear with me here, as a person who created beam weaponry for the intelligence community, what would you think about this being sold to the TI community upon seeing it?
Yeah. Okay. Well, you know what? It's just for fun. I'm just going to put out there that I'm probably one of the few people in the world that actually gets invited to the symposiums on EMF and do weaponry and all this stuff. You know, they still send it to me. I haven't been in the business, and I completely have nothing to do with these people anymore. I'm still an expert. My stuff is still the best in the world. And yet, anyway, but there's a lot of issues that we need to talk about. I want to talk about the scalar. Okay, I've been making a little list here. The scalar, the greed, what have you, the CRDC, FDA. You know, I've dealt with these people extensively. But shielding, you know, it's like the people, we had the joke earlier, tin foil versus aluminum foil. We're going to call it aluminum foil, not tin foil. And let's just call it for what it is. A shield, a shield, right? A shield. It's a shield. It's not a very good one, even as a shield. Come on, the foil's cheaper. Foil's a lot cheaper. Hey, what do they call that? You know, when they're the shield. I'm sorry, you got Furrier. Come on, help me out, guys.
Furrier cage.
Yeah, right, exactly. The cage. There's all sorts of products and things you can do. You put. I mean, because we've all dealt with the TI. Now, I don't, you know, obviously I'm a TI. Obviously, I'm a damn super soldier. People call me my lab, whatever, you know. So, but most of us, we're on the fighting end now. We don't think about so much the attack stuff. But those of us that we are getting attacked, we do have to use technology. And some of us are using the metaphysical stuff, which is when we get into the scalar. And I do want to talk about the scalar because there is something to that, which is what the placebo is. Okay, scalar is placebo, but that's when you're getting into your manifestation and all this fourth density stuff. There's something to that, but the problem is the damn greed. Okay, now, and I keep running into this because, you know, I give it away. I'm a healer too. You know, sure, I'm ex-CIA, but the thing and all is, when you get way up in the CIA and all that stuff, one of the first things you run into is all the religion stuff. And then you run into all the psychic stuff, and then you run into all the alien stuff. And the deeper you get into it, the thicker that stuff gets. And the higher up you get into it, the more they look down on the people that sniff at that stuff. And it's just the way it is. And you can't convince people that any of this, the reality, it's not our jobs. It's like trying to convince someone that the Bible's important. It's not our job to do that. But if you're in pain, we're going to try to help you. But if you're going to use that as an opportunity to make money, right away there's a major problem. $800 for a plastic helmet with some bolts drilled in it. Come on. Or a cup. You know, seriously. Foil is so much cheaper. It's ridiculous.
Why don't we, well, if you don't mind my suggesting this, why couldn't we get the cart and the horse reversed here and talk about what it is that we're talking about introducing into a person's...
Can I talk about the targeting a little bit so people understand exactly what that's all about? Okay, now obviously working for the you know, CIA and stuff, a lot of what they did was what they call non-lethal alternatives. Okay, this falls into what they call the non-lethal alternatives, and that's one of the things that I did was non-lethal alternatives. We had things like lights. One of the projects was a plasma beam, big flashlight, and they wanted it to be modulated to give everybody epileptic seizures. But the point is that only 30% of the population are going to be susceptible to this. So right away, that's a limitation. Now, sure, we've all got these frequencies or these sine wave signatures that they can zero in on. They've been doing this since 1947 with the Philadelphia experiment and with Montauk and AT&T and all that. But the thing is that they try to get everybody. So some of us are being attacked as individuals, and some of us are being attacked en masse. You know, but we all kind of act like, we all kind of think it's us, you know, directly, but, you know, we're getting it from our cell phones. You know, how could we not be getting it with these damn cell phone towers and all these transmissions are going on around us? Imagine the damn bugs with insects with antennas coming out of their heads, what they're going through. No wonder the bees are dying, you know, and we will think that we can spew all this crap into the air, this electromagnetic garbage, and we're not going to be affected. This is why we have cancer. Our poor DNA is getting wiped out by this stuff, you know, and yes, we can do shielding, and we can do all these things, and we can do a certain amount of this with our heads, because yes, being psychic and all that, we can learn how to do that. But those that don't have those abilities, you got to turn and try to find some relief. But when someone greedy like this comes along and tries to cash in on somebody's pain, and the victims that are paying for it, you got to understand there's a certain amount of value. You're not going to attach any value to it unless you spend money. And this is the problem that I have when I give away stuff. Is if I give it away to you for free, you're not going to attach any value to it. If I make you pay for it, then you're going to clutch that thing and attach value to it. So there's something to be said for the charlatan that's charging a lot of money for his crap because he's enforcing the placebo effect. But however, people, don't make these guys rich. That's the bottom line. And the very fact, I mean, you know, I'm a Christian, so the bottom line is we try to help people. And as a Reiki master, I say, look for ways to serve others without expectation of compensation. You know, and I ran companies. I know what it's like to be in a company and try to add value to something and try to have an exorbitant fee. So, but when you're not charging a fair price for something, I mean, if you're going to sell a helmet with bolts in it, at least charge your fair price. Mark it up a couple of times. Don't mark it up a million times. It's ridiculous. And then, you know, that's, what more can I say, guys?
Well, I can tell you, in the materials made, you can make this thing for $100. in picture 9 here, we can see straight from his messages, from his profile, he's selling $835, $845, $850. Like, he's got different models and different, one is more effective than the other. And
for painted gold or painted pink or whatever. God.
Well, we'll get to that one, Magneto Gold. Okay. Go ahead, Theo. What were you going to say?
Well, I actually would like to go back to Dr. Matthew for a moment. It's my understanding and my belief, I don't know of anything different than this, and that is that if you want to control other people's behavior, then you must create either an emotional component or you must alter their consciousness through the introduction of some kind of chemical means. Your thoughts about that?
I think there is a strong control aspect to this targeting, which my view of it is that it's, I mean, I think we might be largely in agreement here that it's mediated, this electronic targeting, electronic harassment is mediated through radio frequency microwave devices. And they are known to create, to induce sensory effects. So that, including voice modulated and visual effects, in addition to just tinnitus-like effects, pain, of course, and the sensation of touch. And so controlling someone's behavior is made that much easier, I believe, with devices that have those sensory effects, including pain. Now, I'm not sure I fully understand your question, so can you rephrase your question?
Sure. If I were using, now I want to compare apples to oranges for just a moment. If I wanted to control somebody's automobile, I could do that through an EMP. It would have a specific and desired effect.
Right.
If I wanted to control another person's brain using EMF, it would be hard to get anything but a generalized response to the wave patterns.
Right. Right. And that's where I think
it's an amplification device.
Right. I think the effects on the nervous system are more generalized and disorganized than people give them credit for. But of course, when you can if you can send a message to someone, then you're influencing them and you're able to coerce them, just like you were if you had a prisoner in a cell and you were interrogating them and torturing them.
Well, back to our NSA expert. Are you aware of any instances where what Dr. Matthew has talked about has been replicated?
Well, totally and completely. But what I really wanted to suggest for you guys, because you're talking about the difficulty it is to manipulate people, but you got to remember what we've got this thing called Google and the cell phones, and they're all listening to you. And you know, this is an incredible database, and people take for granted the size of the computing power that these entities have, and their ability to crunch this data. Now, when you take all this input from all these people's expressions, basically, you got to forget about them trying to sell you stuff. It wasn't until social media came along that they actually started using this stuff to try to sell things to you. I mean, we've all looked on Facebook and suddenly you're thinking about something and an ad pops up and you think, how the hell did they know to be showing me that ad? Well, yes, they do have that ability to do that, and there's different ways. Yes, some of it is neural, but a lot of it is because they've collected so much data on what causes a certain response that it's easy for them to trigger the desired response.
Okay, well, if my friend Bill over here wants to influence somebody's behavior, he can write an article that is written in such a way that his experience with using words produces in a certain number of people a certain kind of behavior. So that's that kind of behavior control I'm familiar with. Being able to specifically direct a person to go to the store and buy a Kit Kat bar is another thing altogether. I really don't, other than getting a Kit Kat bar in front of them and introducing the idea that they desire that. I am yet unfamiliar with means by which you can just transmit using waves.
Okay, Theo. And see, everybody, this is just how unscripted and real the show is. Nobody, we're all just here just to give our own expertise. Theo, let me jump you ahead here in as little time as humanly possible. The owner of LRAD, you know LRAD, the military weapons contractor that does sound devices?
Right.
Owner of LRAD tours the country with his technology at universities, does speeches, and with this device that will beam voices into your head. This is a proven fact. He's actually touring the country. He's done a TED Talk on it. He openly states he sells this to the military and to the government. There's something that you can go and buy. There's something that you can go and buy online called the Audio Spotlight. I think you can buy it for around $600 to a couple $1,000. Libraries were using this. Some grocery stores are using it, where you would step in a certain spot in the store, a beam of sound will hit you, telling you to buy something, and you're the only person that can hear it.
Okay.
So this stuff does.
Let me mention something, V, for you guys. Are you familiar? How many of you are familiar with radionics?
A bit.
Okay. Now, a lot of people look at radionics as kind of voodoo because it certainly falls into a placebo area, but at the same time, there's a lot to it. Now I've done quite a bit of work with radionics, and I'm a laser pioneer. And one of the things that I learned was that I could use a laser to transmit a radionics. I'm going to use the word radionics. I actually would rather say scalar program. Now, this was a major thing, because up until that time, the effective range of a scalar program was about 8 inches, and we had been able to get it out to about a 12-foot, 25-foot radius by using orgone, which is interesting because that's connected to Wilhelm Reich, which is connected to a lot of the mind control, individualistic mob thinking that's being used on us today. Nobody remembers the effect Wilhelm Reich had on. As a psychologist, I'm sure you're familiar with Wilhelm Reich's work because he was a contemporary of Freud, and yet everybody remembers Freud, and yet they've completely cast aside Wilhelm Reich.
A lot of people remember Reich.
What's that?
A lot of people remember Reich.
Well, yeah, sure, they've got his books, they hide them away, but they, yeah.
I think I might even have one behind me over here, but yeah.
But the thing about Wilhelm Reich, though, is to me, he's one of the big three. He's up there with Tesla and Victor Schauberger. And if you want to understand the connection between the technology and the voodoo, these three guys you really got to understand. Because we're talking about voodoo here. And at the same time, there's technology involved. But the thing is I was talking about the scalar and the radionics devices. When you talk about reaching out and touching somebody, you got to understand that the bad guys have got devices that can shut down anything that we do at any time. And as I said, like the little pendants, the guys that got the little pendants. Okay, your little pendant has an 8-inch effective range, which means that you could attach it to yourself, and it's basically a placebo that you wear. I have a thing attached to my car on my gas tank, and it basically makes my F-350 1990 truck not pollute. I haven't paid for a smog test in forever. It doesn't make smog. I've got the data to prove it, but it's placebo based. If I decided that it didn't work, it would stop working. Okay, but the thing is, I'm trying to tell you is that when it comes to the scalar, there's only so much they can do, and they do it. And one of the biggest things they do is they use this in the courtroom, because one of the biggest effects you can have on a person, like for instance, I tell people, you can't use scalar to make someone love you, but you can make them feel like you're one of their family. And they will do this in a courtroom to get out of a thing. They'll basically point this at the judge, like you're talking about the cannon. They do the same thing with the heart attack machines. They got them the size of a cigarette pack now, the heart to kill you with. It's basically transmits a scalar device using whatever electromagnetic technique. But these things, they'll go into these courtrooms and they'll actually make the judge take pity on the defendant. That's one of the big things they do. And the politicians do that. And when you talk about your writing and your ability to affect people's minds, there's your NLP at work, right? I'm sure you use NLP and suggestion all the time, right? So this is magic. And what is magic? Words, those words carry intention, and every one of those intentions is a program. It is a scalar program that goes into your head and affects you, just like a trigger word will affect you. And something else you guys have to understand, scalar programs can be programmed into something as simple as a JPEG, okay? You can have complex programs layered on top of each other, almost infinite numbers of programs which are just sine waves layered on top of each other in a JPEG, and you could be exposed to that JPEG or that scalar program and not even know it. In popular products that you may buy, that Kit Kat bar. Let me tell you something about scalar, and this is incredible, but this is also top secret. We don't say this very loud, but believe it or not, one of the biggest defenses, you're not going to believe this, you're going to think I'm making this shit up. A Hershey's wrapper, the candy bar, Hershey's wrapper candy bar, we use that as a shield for scalar programming. And I have no idea why it does that. I think it's because the paper contains some sort of ceramic component in it. You know, as a scientist, I don't really know scientifically what's going on there. But this is the thing with scalar programs, is they corrupt each other. A crystal can hold a scalar program. It's like a tricorder in Star Trek, you know, when you talk about the healing beds and all that stuff. This technology is coming. I've been working on it, but I've got the Bilderbergers put a head out on me like 10 years ago because I learned to connect this stuff to a laser, and now I can transmit that program as far as I can shoot that laser. They're very pissed off about that. You know,
now, well, let me put this into perspective for the audience. Electromagnetic energy has its ability to affect life. I mean, that's what it does. For example, I don't know, Theo, if you are familiar with this experiment, purified water.
There's another
3 glasses of water, and
there's another spectrum though above the electromagnetic.
I'm just dumbing it down.
I know, but you're getting into Dr. Emoto, see, and that's fourth dead sea. That's the next spectrum.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry.
But let me continue though. But the electromagnetic energy and the effect that it has on us, it was demonstrated in the 3 glasses of water. One was yelled at violently, you know, death metal music played through it. One, nothing happened to it. The other one had sweet words, prayers whispered into it. All same water source, frozen. Now, when the water was pulled out, well, now ice, the ice crystals were warped, deformed, horrid-looking in the one that was yelled at. The middle one was sort of plain. The one that had prayers whispered into it had beautiful formations, symmetrical formations in the water. So this is sort of like the slit test. Particle between particle and waves is us looking at that makes something happen or not. So there's that psychic manifestation, which basically has been weaponized. There are patents, U.S. military patents on electromagnetic fields from televisions to affect behavior.
Yeah, change modulation.
LCD screens, which all have liquid plasma crystals in them, and that's there for a reason. So, but I want to jump into something very quickly. I want to get off topic here, and Kristen, you can jump in whenever you want. The laser campaign from Robert Stanton, Picture 8. The laser campaign, which is he wanted everyone to grab some sort of laser or download an app that he was also selling to have a laser from your phone or whatever to go and shoot the stars. Now, I guess this means he wants to shine lasers into the drones, which, you know, at first thought, and it seemed like a bad idea, but let's see, from your expertise, well, I'm going to say from what I feel, from what I know about basic science, with drones that are flying over a city at nighttime, which work on surveillance, you're not going to be able to flood the sensors of a drone when it's designed to look at lights and look in the buildings. And
you're talking to me, right?
Well, because I had something very, very strange happen with that whole situation with Robert, I want to throw this in because I want to know personally if this had any impact on what happened. Robert was very influential in the TI community at one time. He was very happy. He was very motivational. He made the TI community laugh. He had a tremendous sense of humor. Then all of a sudden, out of the clear blue sky, and we were good friends, he was actually going to do something for the network. Then all of a sudden, out of clear blue sky, he came to me and told me that he had found a laser app and that he was going to download this laser app. Now, he wanted me to go outside of my residence and map the stars. And when he showed me this app, he then told me that he was going to actually perp himself. And I said, you know, this doesn't sound healthy. I'm worried about you. What is going on? Well, there was another individual that added himself to his chat group. And at that time, I got concerned that this laser app had actually become part of his targeting and he had become perped.
Can I ask, how does one perp themselves?
Well, there was some very strange pictures that were associated with this. I'm going to perp myself. I actually have pictures of that when he said, I'm going to perp myself. He showed me pictures of it, which I don't know what it meant. I never got anybody to interpret them. So shortly after this, he downloaded this supposed laser app. He started to try to get other targeted individuals to participate in this as well. So I became more concerned, and I said to him, I'm concerned about your well-being. Then the attacks started coming on the network on me. He started calling me names. He started telling everybody I was a perp. And then the attacks came on a regular basis, and here we are. That's the short version. So my question is, there is a correlation here between this laser app and what V is talking about and where we're at today and this complete change of attitude. I tried to bring it to his attention, as did his best friend, as have a lot of people, because this is not the Robert Stanson that we once knew, not at all. And on a personal note, I have to say it has bothered me because he was an influential or a nice person to the community. It bothers me immensely that this has happened, but the product itself still factually does not work, and he's taken that part of it too far. What is your opinion, Stephen, on the correlation between this laser app and now the behavioral change in Robert Johnson?
Okay, well, you know, you're painting a really ugly picture that I don't really like to even talk about, but let's just say, to start, let me just start with V, and I'll get to the app thing. Okay, first of all, shining lasers in the sky. The lasers have all pretty much got X frequency. Green lasers have a certain frequency. Red lasers typically are within a certain frequency. A device such as a drone, per se, is going to have filters, and it's, I mean, sure, certainly lasers can affect average CCD cameras and what have you, but most military systems are going to have certain protections against certain wavelengths. The green is, infrared is usually the one that they're protecting against, but there's no, obviously in my business, this is the sort of thing that we have to deal with. We have to look for all move frequencies around to bypass these protections. So on the paper, it's shining lights, lasers in the sky, that sounds like a great idea. I like that idea. There's a lot of good stuff. However, now you're getting into an area that gets a little on the weird side, because this is also how we vector in UFOs. Okay? You're getting into the crazy shit now. And I worked on one project. There was a light, they call it a plasma beam, a big-ass flashlight. And they actually use this thing for that purpose. And so when you start talking about somebody shining a laser up in the sky and suddenly they're not the same person and he wants everyone else to go out and do the same thing, that's kind of like, here I am, hook up to me. Now, I told you what we just learned about a laser beam, right? And what it can be done with and how it's a conduit. The laser beam is a conduit. We use laser beams in Star Wars not to hurt things, but to carry the energy of something else. Your charged particle beam weapon requires an infrared laser to carry it to the target. The weapon, once the target is being tracked by the laser, then they will release the energy, and then the energy will travel up the laser beam and take out the target. That's how they took out 800, 900, and JFK Jr. Okay, that's what they do at Montauk. It works both ways. Energy and information travel in the same conduit. So you're going up there and shining a light in the sky. Don't be surprised if you're getting a big old dump of something you don't probably want to be getting. And I'm not surprised. Now, I deal, with the metaphysical, so I'm used to possession. Hell, I'm a super soldier. I spend my nights fighting demons in bunkers, I mean, men who stare at goats and all that crap. It's all real, But so this target individual stuff, it's all part of it. And as soon as, I'll tell you something. The lasers are a new technology. We don't know nothing. It just came out of nowhere. I'm a laser pioneer, and if you read Corso's book, Day After Roswell, you'll know that lasers technology, solid state technology, and night vision technology are the three things that they gave us. And here, we don't know crap. And I saw technology go from ion laser to solid state. That was my thing, solid state. We barely know anything. I just learned that the solid state laser can carry a scalar program. We're not supposed to have learned that. And let me tell you about scalar. Scalar is reality, which means if you can write a scalar program to manipulate reality, that means you can manipulate anything, including somebody's brain.
Okay. I want to touch on what Kristen had said about Robert being, the life of the party, and trust me, I've seen this guy. He thinks whatever his post about him pimping and he thinks he's some sort of celebrity or something. But Theo, this guy always joking around and that sort of thing. That seems to me like that's also part of the con. Don't you have to have someone like you? Don't people like snake oil salesmen use their charisma to push their crap?
I find that the phrase you use, getting somebody to like you, comes about as a result of two things. One of them has to do with whether or not your values meet up with each other. Now, some people are great glad-handers. They are good. They are so good at reading other people that it is amazing. Other people have a hard time believing that they're that good at it. The other means by which you can do this is to find some way to excite that person's supply of oxytocin. Now, those are the only two ways I know how to do it. Either give them some ecstasy or be very good at reading them and understanding what all the little body language means, and then cater to that in some way or another. Frankly, all the stuff I'm hearing now, I'm really hearing pretty much for the first time. It's never even occurred to me that somebody might be able to use a particle machine to manipulate other people's thinking processes. I've always had to do it from the point of view.
I just got done sending V the actual photographs that he sent me, and the individual that he sent me was responsible for this. I sent him photographs of the actual photographs that he sent me saying he was perping himself, and also the individual he said was he was giving credit to for that.
But Theo, I mean, this stuff is, I know, I'm actually doing a major no-no by having a psychotherapist or a psychologist on a show talking about target individuals. This is actually something, but I'm trying to pioneer here, but hold on. There is something, well, let's say, for example, there's transcranial stimulation. You can Google this. You can look up videos on YouTube. There are doctors that will come up with a wand that puts out a magnetic pulse, and a person will try to talk, and it'll disrupt their thinking, their speech, and their ways that their body moves. They can twitch their thumbs, they make their legs move, stuff like that. So, typically speaking, and I try to tell people, you know, psychology isn't the whole answer, and then science is the whole answer. It's neuropsychology. You got to have an understanding of both these days because of all the advanced weaponry that's coming out. And so, I mean, are you familiar with that, Dr. Matthew? The transcranial stimulations?
Oh, of course I am. The issue there is transcranial magnetic stimulation is something that works in very close proximity,
right?
And there is no demonstrated device that can do it at anything beyond a very, very close range. So there's a leap there that's not demonstrated. So, but if I may, I would like to follow up on something that Theo said earlier, because I think it's relevant, and I want to share my view on the matter, and that is on the going back to mind control. From some of the older activists in the community, this whole issue was talked about in the 90s on the internet, when the internet was very young. They had the mind control forum. So mind control was used as the term for targeting. The reporting victims were talking about it in that context. And I think there's a historical way that we're inextricably linked to mind control. But I think, Theo, if I may, what I think you were getting at, and I'm assuming this is what you were getting at, and I think it's very relevant, is what I call the distinction between, and these are my terms only, between weak mind control and strong mind control. And weak mind control would include media affecting people's points of view. It would include coercion through torture. It would include non-specific influences on behavior, disorganized influences on behavior. And I believe that these devices, these weapons, have the ability to do that, and that's from my personal experience as a reporting targeted victim. It's from listening to others, and it's from my knowledge of neurobiology. And one of the I'll just give two examples of the influence on the mind or behavior with these weapons. And the support for these is limited, I will acknowledge that. But one is through a thermal effect of modulated microwaves, which recreates a modulated sound privately inside a person's head. And according to it never happened to me, but I believe that it's possible based on the literature. There's some literature on this, and all the reporting victims, that those can be voice transmissions. And that can definitely have an influencing effect on someone. And then the other side of it would be non-thermal effects. And there's literature showing that non-thermal effects can affect voltage-gated calcium channels, which are throughout your body's electrical system. And myself, when I was targeted, I'm no longer targeted. I was extremely severely targeted in Vancouver, Canada. These assaults could induce seizures. Several times I went into seizure because of these assaults. And there were other times when my muscles were stimulated in a pulsing manner very uncomfortable, and I had an uncontrollable urge to move around. And the way I look at that in hindsight is that my movements were to alleviate the discomfort by moving my muscles to override the stimulation. Now, on one level, they got me to move, to walk in circles. But I still believe that was what I call a weak mind control, in the same realm as coercion through torture and whatnot. And it invades your domicile so that you really have no way to hide from it. Now, as a neurobiologist, as a person who's well connected with this community, and as a victim, personally, I don't believe that these devices do the strong mind control. I don't believe that's possible. Now, that's my view. I'm willing to, you know, we have a diverse panel here. But I think what Theo was getting at is that it's the belief in strong mind control, where you have a direct link into someone's psyche and you're using a remote control to affect their thoughts. Now, I will say that there's literature out there that these pulsed microwave signals can induce bulk emotional changes, and I experienced those as well. But that's a much different beast, a very different beast from precise mind control. And so I think what you were getting at, Theo, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that this belief in strong mind control is where really the community is vulnerable to these kinds of potions, charms, and magical defenses.
You're not wrong, and I want to say I'm not completely ignorant of the experiments that the CDC was conducting with cell phones and how that was ended abruptly by the Bush administration, which leads one to wonder, you know, when something like that happens. If I have you right, what you're saying is that weak mind control would produce a generalized effect, while strong mind control would produce very specific effects.
More or less, that's what I'm saying. And but I've experienced it firsthand, and I've heard from too many reporting victims that these devices, whether you call them black market harassment devices or advanced technology leaking out from the military-industrial complex, there may be a range of these things. They can definitely remotely and deleteriously, and sometimes in an illusory fashion, deleteriously affect or trick the nervous system. And I believe that is possible, but that's disorganized and not and no one's free will is ever taken over. If they believe their free will is taken over, perhaps it's due to intense trauma or something like that.
Hypnosis, brain bugs, other things produce this effect. And I'm not a skeptic. I'm not at all a skeptic. And it would explain a lot. What you're saying would explain a lot of what I'm seeing in people, which is abrupt about faces when it comes to core value systems and things where I'll sit down with an individual who clearly has training that indicates something. So yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you for expanding on that for me. And
I think that you're as someone who's I suppose I don't need to get into your connection to this community, but clearly you're connected. You represent the next circumference that we're trying to reach as we engage with the general public and do our activism. And I think I appreciate your view of it and your willingness to take it on. And I think your skepticism about, I wanted to clarify that your questioning about mind control in a very precise manner, that in the community, we also have many people who limit their view of mind control. To me, it's a red button issue. I don't even like to use the term.
Well, and probably it's best kept inside our circle to some extent, simply because there are people who are very skeptical. I myself am an extremely open-minded person, and if I am shown something that fits into what I know, then I readily accept it. And if it is not something that fits into that, I am not a cynic. I am very open-minded, willing to explore all the various avenues that could lead a person to that conclusion.
Okay, that's great. That's great.
I want to add into this too that, like him, I'm learning about this, and what I do in my writing is a form of influence on people's minds. Though it's not invasive, it's more. I call it drawing circles, and I let the person think that they're coming back to the circle of their own free will, and then they arrive at the conclusion I want them to. But I know. From my knowledge of some naval operations, I know that we have radar systems that are so sophisticated we can actually turn the enemy planes off. If a bird flies through them, it'll come out the other side of turkey, fry it up, and it can be directed toward human beings. I don't know anything about putting voices in somebody's head or anything like that. But when people in our embassy were having a problem over near China, and they were having a big problem with migraine headaches and hearing sounds and things. And what the Chinese were doing was they were hitting the windows with a type of radar or microwave to try to hear what was going on inside. And they just turned it up too high, and it actually got into the heads of the people inside the building, and they had to rotate them back to the United States.
Wow. Yeah, millimeter waves, which is 5G, ladies and gentlemen. All right, so I want to swing back through some of these images here. Now, picture 11, we have Robert Stanton charging. He says, custom Moo Metal face shield for sleep, $90. That's cost, no other charges. Well, of course, there's charges. There is I think, his own personal PSYOP of, I'm doing you a service. Here's this. Now buy something from me, and then this sort of thing. I think that's how the sales pitch usually goes. But I want to talk about the science here really quickly, because that's what I love talking about. Moo Metal. Sure, great for deflecting ELF. Or actually, in this case, attenuating it. Now, Stephen, correct me if I'm wrong, but Moo Metal and highly superconductive metals have a high saturation rate, which means they become ineffective in a very short period of time. And the only way to use them again is to degauss them, to remove the saturation.
Well, you're kind of asking me to try to explain how his stuff is supposed to work, which that's not fair, man. Oh God. Okay, this is something I'd rather. Okay, the thing about the off the windows business, right? Okay. This sort of, I was involved in, that's the thing I was involved in, kind of, the plasma beam. They took that thing and they used it at Waco. They shined it in the windows. They put a big infrared filter on there so you couldn't see what was going in. And yes, it was modulated. It's kind of all the same thing, right? We talk about these different frequencies. They use them all. A couple notable people in our business, Andrew Labramont Weber was one of them. Another one, Andrew Basagio. I don't know if you guys know about those dudes, but one of them was like almost blind now. And Andrew Labramont Weber is like blind on one eye. And it's because of a window. Something got it. Now glass typically does not transmit infrared. Okay, you'll feel some heat, but a thermal wavelengths, 10,000, what have you, are not going to go through your glass. Your visible wavelengths are, but the vibrations certainly will go through the glass. And light can be modulated and produce a frequency vibration just the same as a speaker on a radio. And people need to understand also, one of the times when I was being spied on really hardcore, I confronted these guys. And I said, how the hell do you know these things? And they said, through parabolic means. And I think parabolic means, well, that could come off as just something cryptic. But when I hear parabola, I think telescope reflector. Now, if you know anything about how telescopes work and how light works, you know that all those parallel rays are getting focused on a point, and there's a detector there, and that's how they see what this telescope sees. Well, they can put a damn microphone there, too, and they can hear. And they can also take that...
Dang,
they can hear. So when you look at the space telescope, it doesn't just see things, it hears things. People need to understand that. Now, one of the projects that I was working on, this is probably one of the reasons why they shut me down, but I was going to take that plasma beam and turn it into a weapon that would actually disintegrate steel. Because if you could make sound break a glass, you can, steel is a crystal. Most metal are crystalline in structure also. It just takes a high enough frequency to do that. And a parabolic mirror, well, a plasma will create a resonance. Okay, you can resonate it with a modulation. You can resonate it, and it will create waves. And those waves will focus just like light waves. So when you talk about all these different devices and these things are pointing at us, yes, most of them are within this spectrum, this earthly electromagnetic spectrum, but nobody even talks about the other spectrum, but we don't even know what it is. The only people, maybe guys like Tesla, and there's one other guy, Constantine Mail. If you ever looked into the work of Constantine Mail, he's really good. I don't remember what his specialty is, but he's probably the only person that really understands it next to Tesla. And he'll tell you that these frequencies, these spectrums that we attribute everything to are driven by other spectrums. And those spectrums are driven by other spectrums. And this is the nature of the universe. And I like... The butcher said over there, yeah, everything goes in circles.
Okay, Kristen, do you have anything else that you want to ask?
Well, unfortunately, another aspect of this that was really bothersome was when you start making claims like this, when people are at the end of their rope, what they're targeting, when they don't feel like they have another place to turn, when they feel like a product like this is going to be the last resort for them, and they purchase a product like this as a miracle worker, and that product does not give them that miracle, and then it ends up costing them the ultimate price. That is when products like this go too far. And that's why individuals that make claims about products like this need to be so careful, because that particular situation ended up being the case with this product. And that is why it is so incredibly important that when these products get put out, that they are doing what they're claiming. And if they're not, we need to make sure that they're not available because of the harm that they can cause. That is my message about those, because it is important, and it can end up being a situation like that, which is the most unfortunate thing that can happen.
Well, and let me get a little bit more detailed with this, and Theo, I'm coming right to you. What Kristen is talking about here, I'm going to get very detailed. This con man, Robert Stanton, who sometimes goes by Bobby Bridwell, depends on the level of how he's being exposed. He'll change his name or get some other profile online, something like that. When it came out, information came out that there was a lady, a woman by the name of Janet Murray, who ended up buying one of these helmets out of desperation. You know, her last move, her last option. She actually contacted us and asked about this helmet. We told her no, it wouldn't work. You know, this was some time ago. She bought the helmet anyways, and very shortly after, she killed herself. So this person, I think, should be arrested for manslaughter. This Robert Stanton, selling snake oil to someone desperate. He got his payday, and we got somebody dead. So, I mean, you know, what can we, well, first off, what's the mindset of this, someone like Robert Stanton? Well, what is this monster, first off? And then how can we get rid of these people?
Well, the same thing that affects him is the same thing that is affecting the guy that is, let's take the war in Iraq, okay? In the war in Iraq, our vice president was very influential in devising a war against a sovereign nation. And then he provided all of the services and material to that war and paid himself to do it. It was his company that serviced the war. So it's that kind of, I don't think anybody cares about collateral damage if their main objective is to make money. I don't think Coca-Cola cares that it's killing people every day. I think, now, but I want to go directly to a solution for your problem. First off, to you who are concerned about this individual who died, and I think everybody should be, however, not everybody will be. But for those who are, there is a law called the law of parties. Suicide is a crime. If he committed suicide, he is a party to the suicide and may be charged under the law of parties for the crime of suicide and suffer the same penalty that the dead guy would have suffered if he could be prosecuted as a dead person. So that's a legal, that's really kind of a legal thing. I don't think you're ever going to stop greed, but I want to go to something else too, and that is how to alleviate this condition in people. I think most of us would agree that going to the doctor makes us feel better just because we understand what it is that's wrong with us. Once we have a diagnosis and once we understand that there's a treatment available for it, we immediately begin to feel better. Our families begin to feel better. That support spreads back to us, and we begin to, we actually begin on the road to recovery in many cases. And am I wrong, but would an RF detector identify the spectrum of waves that are being directed at an individual?
Not scalar.
Not scalar, but how about other?
You have, ULF, you have radio, you have microwaves. There are several different bandwidths.
You got AC in your house.
Right. Well,
yeah.
But let's say they could come to one of your locations, to a location that somebody had, and could be put inside some kind of a glass dome or I don't know what, that had the means to detect whether or not something was being aimed at them.
Well, when this situation gets bad enough, I mean, as it grows and becomes pervasive, eventually detectors around residences and throughout the city may be where this leads to. But with the current off-the-shelf solutions, even a good RF detector does not give you a very good idea of direction from which it's coming if it's a beamed signal. And then also these offenders, these harassment networks, are very clever, and they probably use different kinds of surveillance technology, perhaps even through-the-wall radar-type technology, and they play a game of cat and mouse. And as soon as someone takes steps to try to detect the signal and track things down, they can just switch their equipment off. So it's extremely elusive.
Is there a possibility that we can develop through people a means of better approaching the technology to identifying and tracking the location of these beams? The reason I ask this is because, if there's been, all through American history, we look at things that have plagued people, large parts of our population, and what was designed, people would come up with something that didn't even address the problem and sold it as a solution or a cure-all, for what it was. And we passed laws, food and drug laws, that stopped them from doing that.
Well, I believe there will be I believe we can do those things, and there will be solutions. But the problem is right now that we're stuck in a situation in which the vast majority of society regards this as a mental illness issue or a non-existent fantasy. And until we get the entire populace on board that this is an issue, a very complicated and very serious issue, until we do that, we're stuck, and there will be no hope. But with the weight of society behind this issue, sure, that there will be solutions. Not only will there be solutions, I think there'll be new economic opportunities. But we don't even have a hope of that when people regard this as the tinfoil hat club.
I'm going to take just a moment to not disagree with you, but to suggest something, okay? And that is that what we're talking about is what's available. Well, what's available, and actually the next logical step is an information campaign. That's the next logical step, is an information campaign. That is how any big changes in our society get started, with information campaigns. Whatever that book was that the guy wrote about the Food and Drug that started the Food and Drug Administration, about the Chicago slaughterhouses, the concrete jungle, I think. These Uncle Tom's Cabin. This is how things get started. So an information. It sounds. I mean, this is just my 1 billion or 5 billionths of the world's opinion. I think an information campaign is what's called for.
Well, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get the information out there. Well, and we've got to get rid of the con artist, though. When you have an information campaign, you need real information. You need technical sources of information. You need tested, information. I mean, here we have Robert Stanton, and this is photo number 21. Now, this is the genitalia protection.
I'm looking at a picture of
it. And Kristen, can you show the picture, please, from your phone?
What? Of the genitalia cup?
Protect both sides.
His cod pieces.
Protect both sides.
Yeah, hold the phone. I would be happy to. Now, you have to understand, when I had a conversation with Robert about this, when he first was going to show me the products, what was interesting, I guess you could say interesting, was I was joking. And I said to him, Robert, does that come in pink? And does that come in fuchsia? And I was joking, just being a girl. And pretty soon, out pops on the screen a fuchsia pink hat with these magnets all over it. And I just about died. I was like, I had to ask. It was bright fuchsia pink, and I could not believe my eyes. And at first, I couldn't even respond because I couldn't believe what I was looking at. A bright fuchsia pink Magneto R. And then he continued to start to show me pictures of, there's even a cap for your dog.
I was about to get to that. Yeah, see the dog. You see the cap for the dog, because the dog is suffering from. No, don't get me wrong.
Everybody, what you're looking at here is called the driving cap. The driving cap, fellas. Now, I don't know about you, but I do not want a shiny magneto gold on my head while I'm driving. We already have a stereotype against us. No, thank you. Now, next, this was the one he wanted me to sport on my head. I can't even imagine, even if I was alone in my bedroom, I would have to put a bag on my own head, the fuchsia pink magneto protection shield for your head in pink.
It's not going to cause the lamp to slam into your head, is it?
You know, Dr. Matthew and I were talking about getting up and stumbling on something cush. You know, you'd have maybe more of a head injury by bashing into something with that on your head than, you know, you would know what to do with.
Can we talk about the physical effects of this? First of all, I mean, you guys, we have magnetite in our scalp. What is this going to do?
And actually, Stephen, let me hop in here because you're jumping ahead. Yes, I mentioned this with Dr. Matthew Aaron. I've actually mentioned the magnetite in my documentary, my movie that also Dr. Matthew Aaron has seen. I don't know if anybody else seen it, but if you haven't, watch it. I'll link it below. Yes, we have little crystals in our heads and in our brains called magnetite. Go ahead, Steve.
No, I'm just saying is that, you know, this goes back to like the vril business, you know, the women with the real long hair that said that the hair acted as like an antenna. And then the scientists find out, well, how about that? We've actually have magnetite in our scalp that helps transmit this information, and that the hair acts sort of like a fiber optic, sort of like the polar bears that transmits the sunlight. And so, yeah, there's something there. It works the same, you know, and if you know anything about the way microwaves work, you know that they travel down like a tube, like a pipe. Much the same, a fiber optic, we use, sometimes a hollow fiber optic is called a light pipe. A lot of things work this way. So when you're putting something like this on your head, sure, you may be stopping something, maybe, but what else are you stopping? Is there something that you don't want to stop? You know, I mean, some of us, we do these things we pray. We have like third eyes. We transmit FM signals from our heads, things like this. Do we really want to stop that? I mean, isn't that what the government's doing with the damn cell phone towers, putting this damn electronic blanket over our head so that we can't communicate with each other? This is Tower of Babel type stuff. You know? It is. It's total Tower of Babel type crap.
I want to real quickly thank you for placing that thought in my head about my strands of hair. I've never heard that before, and now you have no idea how it operates.
The American Indians
now be thinking that my hair is now a transmitter of
it
something.
Is. This is why Indians don't cut their hair. Remember, the Army would hire scouts. They'd get Indians as scouts, and then they'd cut their hair off, and they'd wonder how come they can't do their scouting stuff anymore. So then they let them grow their hair back, and suddenly they could detect the bad guys sneaking up onto camp, and they could have those animal whatever thing going on. Hello, there's a reason for this stuff. Why do you think they want everybody to cut it off? Oh, conform, cut it off. You know, shave.
I just might now, Stephen. Thanks.
No, cut it off. That's not an answer. It's not an answer.
Well, as is, Robert Stanton is telling the entire TI community that you have microchips littered throughout your brain.
Yeah, now Robert Stanton is telling everybody that I have microchips littered all throughout my brain, and that I am wired for sound. Well, you know, I have a sense of humor, that is for sure, and I'm a little dingy, which is how I get over my targeting. And yes, I am a comedian, but that does not mean that I am wired for sound and have microchips all over my brain. It just means that I choose to be happy throughout my targeting and not miserable like some. So, you know, I resent that immensely. So I don't know where that came from, but that's the new thing, is that I have chips all over my head.
So I have a question for you, Kristen and V. Was there a theory or a proposed mechanism that was supplied with this defense, or not? And if so, what's the theoretical mechanism by which this defense works?
In reference to what, Dr. Matthew?
Well, so I mean, I've heard about people using rare earth magnets in the community, and I feel that the most common claim or idea that's put out there is that, well, there's two ideas, basically. One is that the static magnetic field acts like a mirror and the signals bounce off of it. And then the other claim is that if there's any kind of electronics in your body that the magnets can disable, much like they would disable a hard drive, that they would disable devices in your body. But so I'm just curious.
Robert's contention has been that the helmet itself, the magnets would shield you from attacks outside attacks against your skull, so that you would no longer experience those things. And if you wore it on a consistent basis, it would not only shield you from those things, but would heal any damage, allow your brain to heal from any damage it had suffered from previous attacks.
Okay.
Let me also add in my understanding to this as well. Yes, that's what he claimed. At first, he claimed it blocked B2K. Then once we started investigating that, he backed down, saying no, it's only supposed to do general shielding. And then once we started talking to him about the science behind that, he backed down, and it's just supposed to make you feel a little bit better. And then, you know, at that point, relying on the placebo effect. Now, he doesn't understand, and I've asked him these questions. The one time I talked to him on the phone, asked him if he knew what a dipole was. As he's dealing with magnets, he couldn't answer the question. He didn't understand. He uses the word reverse polarity on his products. I asked him to explain that to me and what that is. He could not. And the fact that you would say reverse polarity, put reverse polarity on your products, that means someone can reverse the polarity of your product. Whoa, I mean, so, and the thing, though, that's what he proposes. What I know is different from my research. Yes, super magnets can mess up computer chips and things like that. However, we don't have those in our bodies. What we have is nanoparticulates, and that is something for another show entirely. But nanoparticulates operate on the magnetic field. That's how it receives and transmits information.
Maybe he's taken all the heavy metal in our body and bring it up to your brain. Is that a great? It's like a cow magnet. You know, they put the magnet in the cow's stomach to attract all the crap, right? It's a cow magnet for your head.
Yeah, but the thing is, though, you're not going to stop information from being transmitted through any way like that. Even, you know, it would take some super, like, degaussing for nanoparticulates, degaussing for stop the flow of frequency information back and forth. And nobody has that in their home. And we actually tried to talk with him to see if he wanted to improve his product in any way. No, this is mine. I guess he just didn't want. He's a perp, a set-up perp, and doesn't want the product to be improved, or maybe he didn't want
you really should stop calling it a product. You should stop calling it a product.
It's not a product. Right. On his scale.
Another issue that happened with Robert is it got to the point where it got on a personal attack. He called V a Porsche monkey.
What?
Well, yes. And ladies and gentlemen.
A Porsche monkey.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Now you've opened up a whole new topic.
We've got the picture here. Now, the thing about when you expose frauds and perps, they cannot come back at you with science. They cannot come back at you with a reasonable argument. They cannot come back at you with anything but a name-calling campaign. Now, what did Robert Stanton do? He makes endless memes endless pictures of him insulting me, Anthony, Kristen.
Really bad.
He's attacked the more credible TIs in the community, like Daniel Bowden, who we had on a couple days ago. And then he actually creates a perp list. Okay? This is what perps do when they get surrounded, to take the attention off of themselves. I mean, is this a behavior that you have seen,
listen, man, I don't even know what a porch monkey is. Billy's telling me he knows.
Oh my!
But what I would like to contribute is this, and then Billy and I actually have another meeting with some military personnel about an op that's about to be conducted inside this country. We're not consulting as far as the op is concerned, but it's going to have consequences, and we're kind of consulting on that. But I'd like to say this. I'd like to serve this up, and I don't know how this is going to fit in. This is probably something real old that you guys know about. But honestly, when the CDC did those experiments that got shut down by the Bush administration, this is what they discovered after like 6 or 8 weeks of research. And that is that rare earth magnets do cause brain changes in individuals. They act as a damping field, okay, and then inside it penetrating to a depth that we do not know yet, because the experiments were not allowed to continue. There were permanent brain changes that were brought about by holding a cell phone up to your ear. So we know that. Now,
I would actually like to present the opportunity for Robert Stanton to come onto the show, because his support network is small. People are laughing at him to his face. They're laughing to him behind his back while talking to him, thinking his friends. I mean, that's why we have all the pictures that we have. People, I mean, he's got there's a screenshot here of where he's trying to desperately get testimonies. It was one message says, 58 messages deleted. Oh, here is one supporter here in this picture. Oh, that's one testimony. And then he's got one other testimony of a guy that's entirely creepy. He doesn't go anywhere without sunglasses on. He looks straight out CIA. This is sort of a kind of a creep. So and he's got this poor little lady, she's a victim, and she actually believes the placebo effect, and we've been talking to her, and she's starting to learn that it's a placebo effect. But Robert Stanton, if you would like to come onto the show and talk science, why don't you maybe come up with something that supports your device, because he has not been able to show anybody a damn thing. If you guys want to,
I have a question.
If you would want to come on and talk science, if any of you guys would like to ask him questions about it and bring up some science, Robert Stan, if you want to bring on your own scientific research team to say something about it, please. But until then, all you're going to do is perp, make memes, slander campaign, try to use what charisma you have to win over.
Does this guy have any credentials, just out of curiosity?
No,
I mean,
nothing.
I mean, we're using these words like science, but, you know, usually we attribute that to people who actually, you know something. So we may be making him sound like he knows something, and I'm assuming, I'm getting the impression he knows absolutely nothing. So is there anything in his background whatsoever to suggest that he ever had any kind of technical anything whatsoever? Does he a college graduate?
Well, he's using stolen valor right now, saying that he was in the Marines back somewhere back in like '97, something like that. He was working with the boys back in '97. He wasn't old enough. There's a little bit of evidence that he was in the Navy. That's it.
Well, how old are we talking? How old is this guy?
I believe the guy is around 38 or something like that. You know, he would have been too young to have been a Marine.
Okay.
Yeah, he's,
as far as we know, does he have any schooling beyond high school?
Not that we know of. We've all asked. He doesn't.
Does he ever work for any technical companies or anything? He's never.
He's never provided us any information like that.
Is he a computer nerd or anything like that? Never messed with electronics before? Not
that we know of. We've asked him all these questions.
I'm surprised he doesn't use the word quantum. What? Tell him to throw the word quantum in there. He could add a couple more bucks.
Remember, we have the rally coming up. I'd be happy to talk about this, but I'm pretty tied up with rally preparations.
One more, actually, about the rally. I was actually told that you were going to be having this helmet sold at the TI rally. That's what Robert Stanton is telling everybody. He's going to raffle off a helmet. Is the springtime rally event?
No.
Yeah, that's what he's telling everybody.
Well, he can tell everyone till the cows come home, or whatever the expression is, but that's not going to happen.
Okay.
That's not going to happen.
Thank you.
And that did not come from me. You know that didn't come from me.
Yeah, I figured as much.
Right.
You know, the only thing I didn't get to say when Theo was talking about solutions is that, you know, if we were to just forget about the enemy per se and just talk about EMF crap in the house to begin with, everybody should have some orgonite. Everybody should have some shungite. I mean, I have a bag of shungite on my damn Wi-Fi router. I have my smart meters wrapped in foil. You know, there's stuff you just got to do.
Oh, yeah, the preventative stuff like that? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so, you know, it's like sleeping with a cell phone next to you. You don't do that. You know, turn your Wi-Fi off at night, you know, stuff like that. So, anyway, but yeah.
Well, you know, we got to wrap this up. And Kristen, I'm done.
I thank everybody really for coming on today. Dr. Matthew and the men in the bottom have additional commitments as well. I want to thank everybody immensely for coming on Targeted today for this special edition. My name is Kristen Manners with my co-host V. Thank you again for joining us. We appreciate it.